Welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast with your host, Hanna Hermanson, bringing you real-life stories of people who realized their dreams to educate and inspire you to create your legacy of abundance now.
All right, we're back. And today, Tracy Timm is with us. Tracy is a quarter-life career coach and human capital advisor. Her program, the Nth Degree Academy, helps high-potential professionals discover their career sweet spot through a mix of self-discovery, tactical training, and some much-needed tough love. Tracy has a degree in behavioral psychology from Yale, a severely bruised ego from working on Wall Street, and has logged one trip around the entire globe. She believes that our unique purpose in life can be realized through our careers and wants to help people come alive at work. Once again, welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome.
Yes. Okay, so I have to know, you logged a trip around the entire globe as a sort of digital nomad. I've got to know what that's all about.
It was amazing. I have to say, going once around the world at 25 was probably one of the best decisions I've made as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually right on the heels of quitting my very first job out of college. And we'll get into that because that's really largely the reason that I do what I do now. And I know with your audience, with people who are trying to do something out there that they love and feel passionate about and live a life that they actually intended and imagined as their real life, that's what I was trying to do. So I was really, it was 2013. I had literally just quit a job on Wall Street, and I decided instead of going right back into a new job, or instead of going back to school, or instead of just literally kind of putzing around the world and maybe not having much structure or direction, that I was going to sign up for a semester at sea.
Oh, yeah.
Which it sounds like you've heard of it, but I had never heard of this in my life. And now I'm like, I tell everybody who has holiday, you must send them on this trip. So it was 6 months, really 4 months where we were, so if you guys aren't familiar with this, a semester at sea is basically a study abroad, but on a boat. And so you live on this old kind of, I guess, defunct cruise ship, for lack of a better term, for 4 months, and you sail around the world. And when you're on the boat, you take classes, because you're actually largely with undergrads. And then when you get off, you just travel. So we went to 16 different countries. We sailed for 4 months. And then at the end, I did a whole backpacking trip around Europe that lasted for like another month or month and a half. So I was gone for about 6. But yeah, I did. I went once around the world. It was really incredible. Started in California. I went backwards all the way. It ended up in Spain, and then flew back, 6 months later. So really
okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably talk about that for years, right? So this is what you do right on the heels of leaving Wall Street. So how do you think that experience shaped or informed where you are now?
Oh my gosh. It was everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was everything. Like I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure if you're listening to this, at some point in your life, you just got dissatisfied with what you were doing, whether you had a job that everybody thought was great and you should be thankful for, and you're making a ton of money, but you're miserable, or you were scraping by and just trying to survive and cobbling a couple pieces of jobs together to just make, ends meet, or you started a business and you're just so frustrated with where you are. Like whatever it is, I had reached this ultimate point of, just sheer misery, Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was literally drinking NyQuil at night to go to bed because I was such a horrible combination of anxious and exhausted that like I couldn't fall asleep because I knew I had to get up in the morning and go back to the same job. But then I couldn't stay awake. I mean, it was just this horrible point in my life. And not only did I really need a reset, but I needed to get reconnected with possibility. Like I had been surrounded by, and you know what, say what you will about Wall Street, whatever, it is pretty negative, but I just happened to be at a point in time and in a place where the majority of people around me didn't really want to be there either. I mean, they had sort of gotten caught up in this, we call it a rat race, right? But I think for them, it was like these golden handcuffs were keeping them stuck to where they were because they had these over leveraged lives and family members who were used to a certain lifestyle. And so were they. And then they were all hustling to keep up with each other. right?
Mm-hmm.
So much so that I think so many of them lost the perspective of why they were there in the first place. And to be honest, I bet a lot of us were there just to make great money.
Sure.
But there was no point at which there was enough money to leave, right? To go and do something they really cared about. So
I think that's so common. It's like you have to recognize that hamster wheel, right? And so at some point you have to, whether it's like the rock bottom or it's something, dramatic happening in your life, I think it is just so common. And like everyone is just kind of on this hamster wheel or have these golden handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what
the
do
way
you
that
think was your like, aha, like, nope, can't do this. Like,
yeah. The way that I describe it to people is like, if you're a girl, you'll get this immediately. It's like when you go into a nail salon and like immediately you're hit with the polish and the acetone and you're like, oh, this just like, it smells, right? It smells bad. But then you have to be in there because you want to get your nails done, right? Like you get a purpose. You've been in there for an hour or whatever. And then an hour later, you're like, you don't smell it anymore, right? You've gone kind of nose blind to the environment that you're in. And once you leave and you take a deep breath, you're like, oh, wow, that I get it. Like this is fresh air. And it took one of those type of moments, what you're talking about. So, what happened was, and this is a story I share a lot. I was working with a guy who was about a year younger than me, who is also an analyst. Mind you, at this time, I'm only like 24, 25 years old, right? So like, I'm still like plucky and like, I can do this and, successful and or whatever, like trying to play the game. I did not realize there were other games to play. And so I was really good friends with this guy. I'd known him for about a year, and every day we would take this really short walk, like literally 5 minutes. And that would be our one afternoon break in the day. And one day we were outside on our terrace taking this little walk, and I noticed that there was some construction going on a bridge that was right next to our office. And I just casually like mentioned it to him, and he looked at it, and I expected no response, right? I just like, oh, cool, or yeah, I don't know, or whatever. And he literally stopped walking, turned me towards him, and was like, Tracy, I studied engineering in college and I love construction, and here's exactly what they're doing. Ooh. And for the next like 5 minutes, he just gushed. Like there's no better word than just gushed about, cement and engineering teams and the winter time and the different like, oh my God,
passion,
right? Like real, true excitement for what he was talking about. Like in its purest form, right? So then I just stood there and looked at him like, what? Like I had worked with this guy for a year and I had literally never seen him gush about anything ever, right? Like we'd gone out, we'd worked 12-hour days for, I knew him well and had no idea that he had this like fire in there for something. And it was just being dampened by our everyday lives. And I went and sat down like once we were done with our walk and was just like, actually really pissed off. The only reason that I had rationalized staying there was that I just didn't know what else I would do. And here was this guy who knew exactly what he wanted to do if he could go out there and do anything, and he wasn't doing it. And so I was just like, well, why does he get to know if he's not going to leave and I don't get to know? I want to leave. Like I'm done with this. And I asked him about it afterwards, and he said, well, what we're doing, this is what successful people do. Like successful people aren't in construction. Successful people aren't, engineers or whatever. And I was like, well, says who? Like that was my big wake up moment, was like, whose definition of success am I working off of right now?
Sure.
And that, to answer your first question, finally, is what drew me to Semester at Sea, and what really woke me back up was all of these people who were like, oh my gosh, we could change the world. We could solve this problem. We could help these people. They were so, the word is just possibility. They were so full of possibility. And I met just some incredible mentors who really mirrored back to me what I think I had forgotten about myself while I was so miserable, the strengths and all the places I could add value, the people in your life that just are the beautiful mirror that stands up in front of you and says, no, this is what I see. It might not be what you see right now, but I see it and I'm going to nurture it. And that was really the transformative nature of that experience.
Massive. Okay. So what I'm hearing is listening to that aha moment, right? Like recognizing in that conversation, whoa, this is way bigger and more urgent than maybe I realized. I do have to figure out what my passions are, set down the NyQuil, get on a boat, surround yourself with people who are thinking about possibility. And so that's all really exciting. And it kind of reminds me of like other experiences I've had, whether it's like yoga training or just college in general, where you get on this hopium, you get high on the drug of hope. And you're like, yes, I can do anything. I have these mentors. I have these ideas. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. And then you kind of put your feet back down on earth. And how did you translate those experiences into a direction that wasn't just,
That's
hopium?
such a great question, because you get like all pumped up and excited. And I'll tell you that I also think part of being an entrepreneur, first and foremost, I'm the most unintentional entrepreneur of all time. Like this was not my goal. I've been in business for 5 years now. And I remember day one just being like, I guess I got to do it. It was, if I could have found somewhere to work full time doing what I do, I probably would have done that. But then again, also, I don't know, I'm realizing more and more day by day how just unbelievably independent and like, I don't know,
entrepreneurial you really are.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great life if you can handle the roller coaster and the risk, right? If you can handle the potential downside, which is always the challenge. But translating it into real life took a lot of time. Specifically what I see my clients dealing with a lot, which is unlearning. Right? Like we learn these sort of scripts for how life should go or supposed to go in our minds. And we learn social standards for what hard work is, or what value is, or, what success is. And you have to, if you really want to blaze your own trail, not meaning do something nobody else has done, but do what's true for you. And that's your version of success. Well, then you have to let go of all the other things that you've learned that are no longer going to serve you in that regard. Right. But I didn't realize that. So right away, when I came back, I thought I was going to get a job with actually an entrepreneur that I had met on the ship, and that fell through, and it was devastating. And then I was thinking, okay, how do I translate this great sort of epiphany that I've had while I was gone, which was, here's where I am in my life. I call it kind of three things. And it's actually the first three parts of our signature program now, which are now, nature, and nurture. Now is like, okay, I knew what my values were. I knew what I cared about. I knew where I wanted to spend my time. I had sort of gone on the journey of redefining success, right? Because I had been reminded, well, hey, here's what you're naturally good at. And you were probably miserable on Wall Street because not only did you not get to use any of those things, but they had all of a sudden become liabilities, in that environment.
Okay.
Not just not useful, but actually harmful. And then nurture is the third one, which is like, what are all the things I've learned that it actually could add value somewhere? So I had all those ideas. I just didn't bring them together in a really cohesive way for actually a couple of years. And it's because I didn't lean fully into my own definition of success. And it's really hard. Like, I don't know if you remember when you got started really, but to go out and actually live it day to day, and to not be swayed by your friends going, when are you going to get a real job? Or your parents asking you like, do you have benefits? And hey, and do you have insurance? And every day there was a temptation to get off my own path and get back on what I call the career conveyor belt, right? It's like, this is sure, this is true, this is proven, this has history. And thus looks and feels a lot safer and stable. The reality is, you and I know really well, since we lived through probably leaving college around, the time of the implosion of the financial markets, that nothing is really stable or safe. Really. Right. So to me, it's like, all right, well, might as well go and try to do my own thing, and I can always get back on.
Right. Yeah. I totally relate to that in that phase. And I think it becomes more exciting, so I used to think like, oh, I overcame that conversation with my mom, or I got through that. And now it's like looking back and like, wow, all the times I could have quit that I didn't. And, sure, there's always that quote unquote safety net of going back to corporate or going back to a job. But I agree. I think it's way more scary to be working for someone else, not knowing what the market is going to do, not having full ownership of everything in my life. Yeah. So I want to kind of just go back for a minute, because there was a lot of value in what you were talking about, taking pause, recognizing what your strengths are, what your passions actually are. So, you had that great opportunity to take some time and step away and really immerse yourself in discovering your passions and surrounding yourself with mirrors. But what advice do you give, or what do you teach your clients to do to really uncover what those core values and strengths and that purpose is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to think about each of us as professionals as an Olympic gold medal level athlete in something. Mm-hmm. It's just likely that most of us are just currently participating in a different event, meaning mm-hmm. Like I deep down, maybe I was an Olympic gold medal level winter athlete, specifically in moguls. But even if I'm downhill skiing, that might look really similar, but something is missing. Does that make sense?
Okay. So you might have been close to your purpose, but you weren't the best.
And so, okay. The cool thing about Olympic athletes is that you can reverse engineer that real quickly. Like if you and I look at Michael Phelps, we immediately know, okay, this guy had these 3 things going for him. Mm-hmm. And again, I like to bucket them in now, which is reality and values, nature, which is strengths and behaviors like personality, and then nurture, which is anything learned, knowledge, skill, expertise, right? So if you look at him and you try to put it in those 3 categories, well, that's really, really easy. You can see, okay, values-wise and reality-wise, like he's super competitive. He was born into the right family at the right time, right? And had the right sort of value set to really commit to that project, if you will. Mm-hmm. Well, then nature is super easy, right? He's got the body with the hands and the shoulders, and he's 7 feet tall. And the nurture is all the coaching that he had over time, his meal plans, all of the sort of expertise around competition and all the time in the pool. So you can easily see how all that came together to make him an Olympic gold medal level swimmer. For each of us, we have to do it in the opposite way. We have to take stock first and then figure out how do all these things fit together to lead to a niche where I add massive and unique value. And the uniqueness and only comes from the fact that no other person will have the same combination of now, nature, and nurture as you, but the value comes from you. So the way that I like to break it down is very first and foremost, you've got to start with now. So where are you in your life right now? What is valuable and important to you? And then what are the realities of your life? Meaning, what responsibilities do you have? Because somebody listening who is, 45 and has 3 kids and a mortgage is going to have just a different set of choices probably than somebody who's 25 and doesn't even have a fish, right? Right. So, and that's just reality. It's not good or bad. It's just that if you and I are trying to help people have their dream life come to reality, well then you can't live in fantasy world, right? You've got to be honest about what you need to pay for and the very minimum viable things that create your lifestyle, right?
Yeah. And I would imagine that helps inform each of our own unique definition of success.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, because what I love about the process that I've put together, the Nth Degree, and these are just the first 3 of 5 total steps, is that you revisit it when your life changes. Because you and I both know, like, the only thing constant is that constant evolution. And my values right now at 31, about to be 32, are very different than they were when I was 25.
Right.
And that's only 5 years or 6 years, and I don't have kids yet and I'm not married yet. And so nothing, I wouldn't say, there have been a couple dramatic things that have changed in my life. Loss of a parent, moving, things like that really impacted where I spent my time and how those values were lived in real time. And everybody can resonate with that. Right. Every single person, right, on the phone can go, oh yeah, I remember a time where my values were this, and then 1 year changed and 50% of my values changed. I went from super independent to wanting family all the time. I went from stability to like, you know what, if it's now or never, I'm going to take risk. And that's so the values piece is crucial at the outset. And here's the 2.0 of values: commitments. So if your values are true, right, if they are that deep and meaningful, well, then our actions in the world, who we spend our time with, where we spend our money, etc., that speaks to those values, that shares those values with the world, and it proves them to ourselves. So if your values are real, then you have to be willing to make commitments around them and be okay with that, right? And this is the biggest game changer for people, is that once they have those commitments, I mean, imagine if you and I are committed to what we're doing right now, right? That means when push comes to shove, it's go time, and we've made that commitment that we're not going to back down. So the question isn't, am I going to quit or am I going to keep going? The question is, what am I going to do to keep going? Right? It simplifies your decision-making process.
Yeah.
And I learned this from actually an executive here in Dallas who said that he and his wife, every year they set up their family's commitment. And it's like 10, 11 things. Some of them are super basic. Like they really like old homes. I don't know what that was all about, but he's like, we're committed to living in an old house or in a neighborhood or a place that has old homes. And then one of them was living in Dallas until their kids graduated high school, which was only a couple years away. And he said, literally, he was an executive. He's like, if I get a call tomorrow from a business that I would dream about working for, but they want me to move to Seattle, well, guess what? I don't even lose sleep over saying no to that.
Right.
We've set our commitments ahead of time. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love that. And then the other two, I mean, to figure out your nature and your nurture, I would say, leverage every single behavioral assessment you can find. So
I just got into the Enneagrams.
Ooh, yes. Enneagram is a great place to start. It's definitely on the more like woo-woo side.
Yes.
It's great. So I would go there. I would also go into ones that businesses use. So the one I like the best is the predictive index, specifically, just so you can get kind of a personality side and a woo-woo side and sort of a professionally driven side. And then for your nurture, here are the three things you want to mind for your nurture. It's your work experience. And all you're looking for is, what did I like? What did I not like? And what skills, knowledge, or expertise can I use going forward? Those are the three things, right? It's not like you bemoan like the year you spent working wherever if you hated it. You're just, what did I learn? What did I like? What did I not like? And what can I take with me, right? So you want to do that for your work experience, for your education experience, and for what I call your ninja skill experiences, which are like anything else. So travel, hobbies, extracurricular activities, etc. And what's really, really cool, Hanna, is like, and I love that I can say this, is that every time we've done that with somebody, we've found their niche. Like every time we get those three puzzle pieces, all they have to do is bring the puzzle pieces and we put them into the framework. The framework produces a niche that they love because it's what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing and what my value set is right now. And so the combination there is just really, really powerful.
Yeah. I'm picturing that, like those three circles in a Venn diagram. Yep. And the sort of basic idea is like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy and what can you get paid for? And finding that kind of sweet spot. And now I love this. It's kind of like a more 3D model of like, and what are your values and your non-negotiables and what success look like? So really powerful.
That gives it context, right? If you have everything else, but you don't have the context it lives in, then it's not real. You know, it's a fantasy or it's a dream. Well, if you want your dream, like, I love this. Oh, this is so perfect. If you want your dream life to be your real life, then you have to put it in the perspective of what is my reality? Like, how much do I want to make a month? What type of lifestyle do I want for my family? How much free time do I want to have? Like, how much of my time do I really want to be dedicating to work? And this is all starting out with ideal so that you can aim for that and share with the right people at the right time.
It's just like a GPS, right? You got to know where you're going on this road trip and what the end goal is and where you're trying to get to so that you can start making those shifts and move into them.
Yeah. Too, though, I think you said something great there. I think you also have to be willing to allow it to change. as you're going towards it. Because I don't know about you, but in my business, I've had so many of these big visions. And then, version sub-zero of you is looking at goal sub-zero and going, that's what I want. And then as you progress toward it, you change.
Yeah.
So your goal changes. And then you have version sub-1 and goal sub-1. And as you change again. So it's, I don't know. I feel like, and I'm really working on this currently, which is why this is top of mind, is leaning into this process as one of constant evolution and not getting too attached to any one particular outcome, knowing that it's going to change. And that makes it a lot easier to be less attached.
Yeah, our desires are unlimited. You achieve one thing and then you're on to the next.
Isn't that the truth? Goodness.
So good. Okay, Tracy, we talked a little bit about college today, but we are nearing the pop quiz section of the show. You've already given us a lot of great nuggets and insight, but I just want to ask you 3 last questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The first question is, what can listeners do today, an action they can take that will help them get closer to that dream life?
Ooh, okay. If you're going to do one thing today, I find that it has either never happened or has been a long time since anyone that I talk to has actually sat down and thought about what they really value at this moment in time. So I would challenge you to spend 1 hour, and you can break it up. You can break it up like this. Spend the first 10 minutes just brainstorming what comes immediately to mind when you think about what you care about. So what am I doing when I feel like I'm at my best? Where do I feel safest? Where do I feel happiest? What are the things in your life right now that just bring you joy and you get tons of value from? That's the first 10 minutes. Then you spend the next 20 minutes looking at lists of core values online. I know that's like really basic, but I like the prompts. Like I like to be able to see, ooh, I like action. Ooh, I like vision. Ooh, I like purpose, right? And the words sort of have resonating value with you. So spend the next 20 minutes just looking at words and seeing what inspires you. And the last 30 minutes looking at everything you've written, and whether you have it in a spreadsheet or you've written them all by hand, I want you to group them together. Any similar, like if you've got support and mentorship and community and that's one value to you, then group it together and give it like an awesome name. Like one of my core values this year is Braveheart. And so instead of it being freedom or instead of being power or whatever, it's just in my mind, I envision him and I'm like, yes, like Mel, and a lot more good juice to it. So that's what I would do today is spend that 10, 20, 30 hour of really defining your core values and sit with it and ask yourself, where am I living these values and where do I wish I could be living them more? And I think just having that moment of vision and clarity is going to jumpstart whatever it is that's really bothering you. Like whatever it is that you feel like is in your way or keeping you stuck or is confusing or overwhelming. I mean, once we get back to what really matters, I think it gives us, to your point, a GPS or a compass of where we want to go. Yeah.
Wow. 1 hour, people. Beautiful.
You have an hour to give yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Right.
Definitely. Good. Okay. Question number 2 is, if you could give a tangible resource, like a gift to every listener, what would you want them to have?
Ooh. Okay, I have 2 answers to this. One is very cheesy and the other one is very self-promotional. So the first thing that I would give them is something that I actually, it's this little $7 coffee mug that I absolutely cherish. It's in my apartment right now and it's in the shape of an elephant. Like it's literally the whole mug is an elephant. You hold its tail to drink. And every time that I feel overwhelmed, every time that I feel like I have too much to do or too much on my plate or whatever, I try to remind myself to go get that elephant mug and drink my coffee out of it and just think the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And it just reminds me of moments in my life where I've been so overwhelmed and done nothing, right? Which is literally the opposite of useful. And instead to just, nothing is going to be accomplished in one day and just continually lean in and just do what's the one thing I can do today to get closer? What's the one thing I can do in the next hour to get a little closer? So that's the one cheesy thing. The self-serving thing is that if you are one of these people that's like at all confused or unclear about what it is that you want to do. I know some of you out there hustling and you're like, what's the next thing? What can I be doing more of? What's my next step? Well, if there's confusion or lack of clarity in any of that to you, I have a free resource that's 5 steps to get unstuck.
Oh, perfect.
That I'm gonna have on the website that I'm sending everybody to. If that works well for you, it's just going to be tracytimm.com/dreamlife. And all of the resources that we talk about here are going to live there. So it's this really great PDF resource. It's pretty short, but it's 5 very tangible steps to feel less stuck right now, so you can move forward with a little bit more freedom and a little bit more clarity.
Awesome. And that answers my last question. Question number 3 is, where can people learn more about what you do and stay connected? And it sounds like tracytimm.com/dreamlife.
/dreamlife. Yep. And that'll be actually, it lives sort of as a static page on my website. So you can go there for the resources that we talked about here, which is that we have a masterclass on there. You can even book a clarity call with me directly or with someone on my team. And it's part of the website. So if you want to dig around, find out more about what we do, more about the Nth Degree, anything like that, then you'll already be there.
Oh, so good. And as we discussed a little bit before the show, Tracy Timm, she's got the alliteration going. It's TRACY, and then Timm, it's TIMM. Thank you so much for that offer. That's very generous.
Happy to. Yeah. It's something that, not everybody's just ready to talk to a human being right away. And I know I was always looking for ways that I could figure out how to do something by myself, at the outset. So we've got plenty of strategies for that. But then as soon as you're ready, I've found, and maybe Hanna, you could speak to this too, the minute that I decided, I don't want to go this alone is when things started to explode. Like when I got coaches, when I got mentors, when I started, paying and investing in my own personal and professional development, that's when things really started to take off. So I'm so glad that you're, providing these resources for people. It sounds like you're doing an amazing thing for the people that you work with. And so I feel the same way.
Beautiful. Well, Tracy, I'm so glad we got to get together and create this value today. And be sure to check out the resources we mentioned and return back here next week. I'll be back with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.
You've been learning how to make your dream life your real life with Hanna Hermanson. To get the resources mentioned on today's show and to listen to past episodes, visit www.dreamlifeisreallife.com.